Ever since the Panderstone hit from South Park, Kathleen Kennedy has been in hiding. Then all this Rey Movie nonsense broke and the Mandalorian was handed over to Jon Favreau for a movie. And now, 6 days ago, we noticed something. Suddenly, article after article after article, all praising Kathleen Kennedy. Folks, we're here to expose the PR campaign. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, of all backgrounds. You are so welcome here on the Pro Channel, as are our esteemed guests, Lauren Connor of That Park Place and Derek, the DA from same said YouTube channel. Welcome, gentlemen.
How's it going, Pro?
Happy as always. Overly blessed and an attitude of gratitude here on this channel for each and every person viewing. Let's get straight into the topic at hand, and that is that, guys, you know Kathleen Kennedy was absolutely pilloried by Trey Parker, Matt Stone over at South Park, and then nothing. Absolutely nothing. Disney did not come to her defense. Not a word, not a peep. Now, following the Rey movie mishap, where it can't come out when they thought it was going to come out, following Jon Favreau being elected as the man of the hour to guide Star Wars in 2024, and in the same year that Kathleen Kennedy is up for contract renewal, as of 6 days ago, a flood of articles have been hitting the web, all praising Kathleen Kennedy. And folks, we're here to tell you, you can go and discover exactly what we're telling you on your own very easily. We're going to walk you through this. Folks, go to Google News. Type in Kathleen Kennedy. What you're going to find is that for months and months, there was nothing. And then, let there be light, darkness. There were plenty of articles all hitting the web as of 6 days ago. We're going to walk you through those, and the similarities are compelling. As we go through this, though, folks, I want to tell you, we do not have hard, absolute evidence that these are part of some sort of PR campaign. But you watch the video and you tell us what you think. It's a little eerie when everybody is saying the exact same thing.
The sharing of biased and false news
has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things aren't true without checking facts first.
This out of Gizmodo.com. Jermaine Lucier, our author, we've read articles from this person before, published. Pay attention, folks. These are going to matter. January 11th, 2024. Kathleen Kennedy Masterpieces ranked. Kathleen Kennedy Masterpieces. The president of Lucasfilm gets a lot of crap, but don't forget, she's worked on your favorite movies ever. We'll never understand. Watch. You can figure out what this is about in the first paragraph. We'll never understand how certain pockets of the internet vilify Kathleen Kennedy. Since Kennedy became the president of Lucasfilm in 2012, she's been instrumental in bringing one of the most famous franchises in the world back to prominence on the big screen and beyond. Yeah. Okay, so Kathleen Kennedy Masterpieces ranked, okay. MovieWeb, January 13th, 2024. Who is Kathleen Kennedy, and why is she in charge of Star Wars? Kathleen Kennedy is the president of Lucasfilm, as in charge of the Star Wars franchise. Here is her history, and why George Lucas picked her, by Richard Fink and Amanda Minchin. They needed 2 authors for this. This must be impressive. When people think of Star Wars, the name that springs to mind is George Lucas. He is, after all, the director and creator of the franchise. His name is literally in the production company. One name that might not come immediately to mind is that of Kathleen Kennedy. Kennedy is easily one of the most successful producers of all time, having been attached to some of the most iconic movies in current film history. Another puff piece all about Kathleen Kennedy. And folks, it goes on and on and on and on. It's all puff. It's all happy Kathleen Kennedy, good, detractors bad. How far does this go? The Economic Times. Who is Kathleen Kennedy, and what led her to helm Star Wars? Know about her controversies in her career. This, January 15th, 2024. In the vast galaxy of Star Wars, one name often overshadowed by the luminary presence of George Lucas is Kathleen Kennedy. While Lucas is the visionary creator, anybody seeing a pattern here? Kennedy has been the force behind the scenes, shaping the destiny of Lucasfilm over a decade. From her illustrious career as a prolific producer to assuming the presidency of Lucasfilm, Kennedy's journey has been a mix of triumphs, challenges, and unwarranted controversies. Oh, they're unwarranted. Now, let me say, you can go find more of these folks And I guarantee you that if you go to Google News and you start searching for articles on Kathleen Kennedy, you'll see absolutely nothing. And then about a week ago, all of this started from all of these access media types. Gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, I think this is concerted. I don't know that it's all organized. I don't know that it's paid for or anything like that. But I want folks to know I think there's a PR campaign happening. I'm happy to expose it. And of course, Rolling Stone stepped in it, which they are apt to do. Rolling Stone, of course, famous for the Duke lacrosse situation, famous for being sued and owing some big-time money to a particular fraternity as well. Rolling Stone is not where you go for accurate news. You're better off going to The Onion if you want accurate news than going to Rolling Stone. But that said, they've come out with a scathing report attacking Star Wars theory and defending Kathleen Kennedy. And then there was also another thing that happened, and that is that folks on the internet, they got all up in a tizzy, big old tizzy, and they didn't like Chris Gore. They didn't like Film Threat because he said that Star Wars has problems. This was one of the most egregious. This is Alden Diaz, who runs a Star Wars podcast. Not sure that the viewership is tremendous there, not to malign, but he has, it appears to me, had Ryan Johnson on his podcast, so maybe some connections there. Alden Diaz claps back at Chris Gore, and here's what Chris Gore said. Turning Star Wars into a girl brand will prove to be one of the costliest decisions in entertainment history. Yes, I mean, that's absolutely clear. So I want to run through these tweets that again, folks, all of this seems to be happening all at once. I want to run through these tweets and get the thoughts of our esteemed guests here on this. I'm going to let you guys loose because this is easy, but we need to address this because I feel like we are being assaulted with very low IQ arguments, not people, but very low IQ arguments in a concerted way to try to inundate us and make it seem like we're the bad guys. And we're not that dumb. We're not going to fall for that. So let's address these. Alden Diaz again. And this tweet had, Elon doesn't want us to call them tweets. This post had nearly 100,000 views, so not small potatoes in terms of impressions here. The 4 modern Star Wars films, led by women, the sequels in Rogue One, grossed around $5,533,000,000. The Mandalorian Season 3 added a woman as its co-lead and was the top-performing original streaming series of 2023. Stay mad. And this is just the beginning, folks. So I want to give my initial thoughts to this and then hand it over to you guys. Initial thought number 1 is, why did you not include Solo a Star Wars story? Initial thought number 2 is that if you add Solo a Star Wars story to it, then what you find out is they really didn't make back very much money, probably not enough to cover the ROI that was expected. And then point number 3 is, I don't know why Mandalorian Season 3 is impressive. It was beaten by Bluey, a preschool cartoon dog on Disney Plus in terms of ratings. Gentlemen, your thoughts on this tweet in particular?
So I kind of already gave mine to this poster directly because I saw this post and responded to him.
Say it again, Lauren. What did you tell?
I said something to the effect of, cute story, now talk about how much the movies actually cost, and laying out the fact that the gross box office is a meaningless number. The number that counts is the net, and the way that you figure that out is you have to take the gross and then subtract the production costs, the marketing spend, and you also have to take into account the gate split for the ticket sales, which is usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 60-40. Valiant Renegade's taken us through this about a dozen times. And so I kind of launched into that. Later on, I linked him the video to Valiant Renegades, breaking all of this down, showing the actual UK tax filings for the production.
They don't like that, Lauren. You hit them with facts. They don't like facts.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to do it. It's real easy to go out there with some loosey-goosey numbers that are reporting what either the media says or what Disney or Lucasfilm are claiming when they are self-reporting. But the nice thing about those UK tax filings is that that's a legal document that they are required to report on. And if they report incorrectly, there's trouble that they can get in for that. So those are the actual accurate numbers. And so naturally, when you get to that point, that's when they want to start attacking your character or what kind of a person you are. They don't want to go back to the facts. Now, in the case of the post that I had made. This individual never responded to me. But many people did see the message, and there were some either responding for or against my particular argument. But there were some that got a little heated about it because they wanted to make it personal. It's like, look, I'm just saying, you're trying to claim this is successful, but the actual numbers show they're in the negative by a pretty significant number.
Right. It kind of reminds me, Lauren, of somebody saying, yeah, I sold a house for $400,000. Isn't that amazing? And you say, well, sure. How much did you buy the house for? $800,000. Not that impressive then. You're underwater, Chief. Derek, where are we underwater with the logic behind this? You want to take this one apart real quick?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of, I didn't see this post, by the way, or this tweet, whatever it is, but there's a lot that you can pick apart from his argument, the 4 modern Star Wars films led by women. First of all, the original first film, The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens was Star Wars' first return to theaters in 10 years. Not only that, it was the return of Han, Luke, and Leia. At least that's what everybody thought it was going to be. That's what we were expecting. So there was a huge surge of interest in Star Wars from that film, because it was going to really bring back Star Wars in a way that we had not seen it since 1983. So you're talking about a long-awaited return of 3 of the most amazing and popular characters in the history of film. Yeah, that was going to do a lot of money. I'm sorry. That was going to make a lot of money. I don't think anybody's going to break the Star Wars Force Awakens domestic box office take, which I think is still #1 in the United States, somewhere sitting around, what is it, 900+ million. It's almost $1 billion.
But you know what's crazy, Derek?
Alone. What's that?
What's crazy to me is if they had handled Luke, Leia, and Han in the best way possible, I think those films would have easily topped 10 billion. And I say that
easily.
because they declined dramatically over 3 films.
Well, that was my next point, is that after that $2 billion start, so for the next 3 films, it's clearly depreciating assets. It's clearly a downward trend from The Force Awakens going to The Last Jedi. Well, the Rogue One, is kind of a one-off, side story, but then going to The Last Jedi and then to The Rise of Palpatine. Yeah, it's a complete downward trend. So, I mean, did you build upon the success, or did it go in the other direction? So I'm not sure exactly the argument that this guy thinks he's making is a solid argument.
Yeah, get ready, Derek. And Derek, I have heard people call it the spin-off trilogy instead of the sequel trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody call it the depreciating trilogy. Now I'm inclined to do that. I mean, that's great. Alden Diaz continues. Get ready. Here we go. And remember, this is someone who has connections to get Ryan Johnson on their podcast, we believe. Saw the picture. Alden Diaz says, imagine being this level of factually incorrect just because you hate sharing. Like, of course, the money is not the issue. We know this. We know it's a cocktail of misogyny, ism, and a fear of irrelevance, but they don't even push their ish in ways that hold. It's laughable. We'll read one more because it's just too much. They will plug their ears and say whatever they want. Guys, are we plugging our ears right now? Or are we going in depth on this? I think we're going in depth. Like petulant, effing children. They think angrily typing things makes those things true. Maybe some self-insert there. It's gonna fail, but it's literally succeeding and has been for almost a decade now. I said it'll fail. That's where we're at. But Alden is here to bring in the truth. So you see, I said what I also said at the beginning of the video in my response. And Lauren, I see yours as well down here, folks. Make sure you go check those out. Let's go back to this, though, guys. Let's just deal with these point by point. You tell me what you think. Money's not the issue. I'll agree that Lucasfilm doesn't act that way, but I think Disney does, and I think the Rey movie being delayed probably indicates that. But let me let you two knock this out of the park. The claim here is that the critics of Kathleen Kennedy are simply based on misogyny and isms and apparently a fear of becoming irrelevant because of the color of their skin or something. I don't know. Or because of their biological sex or their gender. I don't know. It's hard to parse this out. But guys, can you articulate what, as best you can, what is the real crux of the matter when it comes to what Kathleen Kennedy has done wrong? Articulate it so that someone such as Alden Diaz can understand it.
You want to take it first?
I'll go first. So, in my opinion, I think the biggest problem that we have with Kathleen Kennedy, it's kind of what the Panderverse talked about. She's pandering, and she's pandering to an audience, trying to change what Chris Gore said, change Star Wars from a boys brand into a girls brand, instead of just letting Star Wars be Star Wars. Give us the Star Wars that has always worked, that has worked under George. It worked for, decades. That's the Star Wars folks are looking for. She's coming in with an agenda. She's trying to pander to an audience that simply is not going to show up to the theaters. They're not showing up in the viewership numbers when it comes to Mando, or Mando season 3, when it comes to Ahsoka. I doubt they're going to show up when it comes to the Acolyte or to the Skeleton Crew, because the brand is taking on enormous amounts of damage. And that's the thing that we're all saying. Listen, you're not giving us Star Wars. You're giving us something that looks like Star Wars, which is why we call it Disney Star Wars, but it's really not Star Wars, and this, to this point of Star Wars being a boy brand or a girl brand. Listen, Star Wars is Star Wars, and it appeals to boys. It appeals to men. It appeals to us because that's the way that George Lucas wrote it. He wrote it specifically for that purpose. He stated this, and I'm not sure if people have ever seen this video. He made a movie called Strange Magic. And you can Google this right now. You can go on YouTube right now. In the first 10 seconds of a conversation he was having in regards to Strange Magic, he literally says, I wrote Star Wars to be a mythological adventure for 12-year-old boys. That's out of the mouth of George Lucas. Now, is Star Wars for anybody that likes it? Of course it is. Of course it is. As all fictional storytelling is. Just because it necessarily is written for one gender or another doesn't mean it cannot have a more broad appeal. But that is where Star Wars, that's the genesis of the franchise. And people don't want to accept that. They want to change Star Wars from a boys brand to a girls brand, or to something that girls will find more interesting, instead of just letting it be Star Wars. And I always use this argument. If you flip it in the other direction, if anybody said, hey, they're changing Barbie to a boys brand, there would be no outrage. If anyone ever told you that Barbie was a girls brand, that's not an outrageous statement. That's not something for, hey, where's the argument? Yes, of course it's a girls brand. Just like Star Wars has always appealed more to boys than it has appealed to girls. So I don't understand why everyone's up in arms about this. This is something that's existed for the last 40 plus years. We all understood it. The argument that Chris Gore is making is absolutely 100% on the nose. So it just doesn't make any sense to me why they're going in this direction and trying to argue this, except from the standpoint of ideology. They have an ideology, they have an agenda that they're trying to push. It's very clear. And that agenda is coming under attack by people with rational, common sense thinking and saying, yes, Star Wars started off as a simple, if you look at the first film, it's a story that starts off with a boy yearning for his father, wishing that he knew his father. Luke Skywalker. It was a story of a father and a son throughout the entire original trilogy. So how do you say that this is not somehow supposed to appeal to boys? I just don't understand the arguments that these guys are making, that it's always been, kind of a everybody, everything franchise. It's definitely one that has appealed more to boys than it has to girls. And the numbers bear it out. When you go and you look at the Star Wars toys, more boys collect Star Wars toys. Not to say that women don't. Obviously, there are plenty of women. I know women, and I'm sure you guys do too, that love Star Wars, love the franchise. But, this argument that Star Wars is not a boys brand is absolutely ridiculous. And I'll just finish with this thing about Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy has tried specifically to turn Star Wars into a girls brand, forces female, okay? But what she's doing is she's forcing a female, Rey, this character who no one's ever liked. This character has not worked. She's had 3 films to get it right, and she has failed every single one of those to really capture our imagination, to make us yearn for more. Give me more Rey. We're not getting that. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason to continue with that character, but yet we're getting a Rey film. So that tells you everything you need to know when it comes to what Kathleen Kennedy is all about. And maybe that's a Bob Iger thing. I've heard that Bob Iger is pushing that agenda, but either way, they're pushing that agenda into Star Wars instead of just letting the franchise be what it is. Just let it be Star Wars and everybody will be just fine.
Well, I would say, Derek, that if you look at the Barbie franchise, for example, I'm sure there's some guys that like Barbie, but you'd be an imbecile to turn Barbie into a boy brand.
Right.
You'll make 5% of what it would otherwise. It's clearly a girl brand. It's okay that it's a girl brand.
And there's nothing wrong with having brands for boys and brands for girls. We're different. Girls are different, boys are different.
Well, that is antithetical to the Kathleen Kennedy position, though, is that, this is all, the original pitch was, we'll remake A New Hope. We'll put a girl in the lead, and we'll have a 4-quadrant strategy. All the boys will still stay with us, but the girls will want to join in too. And that's a swell idea. It just didn't work. And when you destroy the legacy characters and even their reputations in the process of doing so, well, you're just awful. Lauren, what else needs to be said that has not yet been said?
Star Wars is at its best when it's aspirational. And I think these people think that they're being aspirational, but they're really being exclusionary. And they're trying to make the argument that Star Wars was somehow a no girls allowed club. Now,
Lauren, let me interrupt just briefly. Folks, remember what Lauren said about aspirational. It's going to come back in just a few minutes. Continue on, Lauren.
There have always been female fans of Star Wars, and I think that male fans of Star Wars love having female fans of Star Wars. There's nothing better, really, than when you can geek out to something with people that you're close with. And if that happens to be a significant other, a girlfriend, a wife, whatever it is, that's even better. It gives you something to bond over. That's something that is desirable and that you want. Kathleen Kennedy has taken great pains to not say that she is a fan of Star Wars and what it has been. She likes what it acts as a vehicle to allow her to do. If I had somebody that I wanted to lead my company, I would hope that they like my product, but it's very clear she doesn't like what the product was. And I think that's a little bit like getting into a marriage because you want to change your spouse. That's a recipe for disaster. There is a point at which some level of gatekeeping is a good thing. If you love a thing, you don't want to come in and change all of it. And if you do so, you are going to alienate the original fans of the property. There were a lot of people that were responding to some of the comments that I made on Twitter this weekend saying, why can't you just move on? My point is, you don't get to tell me to move on. We were here to start with. You are the newcomers. If you love the thing, that's great. Welcome in. We love having fans here. And I'm not here to tell you what kind of fan to be. If you like the sequel trilogy, that's great. I'm happy for you. But don't go telling us that we're wrong because we don't like it and that we can't talk about it. We get to say we don't like it, and we do like this just as much as you do. So as long as we can operate under those kind of ground rules, I think that everything's fine. It's that when you're trying to drown people out and create this false narrative around this gross box office number, that's when I think we have to go and report on the actual truth. And that's why it's important to have the numbers and the videos and the tax filings to back it up, because there is no my truth. There is the truth, and those are based on facts. You can't refute facts, and that's what we need to argue with.
Star Wars reminds me of something like a really good pizza restaurant, and somebody came in and bought it, and they said, I don't like pizza. This is now going to be a vegan cupcake place. And it's like, well, you can do that, but the really popular pizza place might suffer when it's no longer the pizza place. You can aim for a different demographic, but is the consumer base for vegan cupcakes the same size as for just awesome pizza? I bet it's not. I bet it's not sustainable in that same way. Lauren, you brought up the idea that Star Wars, when it's in its best form, is admonishing people to seek something better, right? It's aspirational. It's optimistic. The core of Star Wars in the original trilogy is the idea that you can redeem the very worst, and that the very worst happens to be your own father, right? And that the darkness of your father resides in you, but that you can actually redeem that. You can actually save your father and thereby defeat darkness itself. Let's compare this now, because we're talking about this PR campaign, whether it's organic or inorganic, whether it's organized or disorganized. However this has come about, where suddenly there's tons of Kathleen Kennedy articles, And by the way, there's no reason that they should exist. There should be Rey movie articles and there should be Mandalorian articles. There are not, that I can find, a ton of just out of the blue Jon Favreau articles. So why are there suddenly so many Kathleen Kennedy articles? But this is in reference to that horrid article that we will not read because it's from a news site that I think publishes rubbish. But the Rolling Stone, this is by Keir is in her Hera era, mandalorian. It says, wild that Star Wars theory made Rolling Stone, but not as wild as this quote. I don't think it's wild. I think it's, I think it's a food fight with Rolling Stone trying to clickbait people into rage with misleading information. And they've done that before, and they've paid legal fees for doing so. But here's what it says. When reached for comment by Rolling Stone, Khan, who was the guest on Star Wars Theory, said, some people are looking for an excuse to be offended because then they can feel like a victim, and feeling like a victim gives them some purpose and meaning in life. And that's a psychological known. I mean, we know that there are people out there. There are actually terms for this in the medical world for people who want to be victimized by illnesses that don't exist. They're called hypochondriacs, and there's some benefit, or else they wouldn't have that feeling and that enablement. But that goes throughout all different courses of life as well. There is something to be said for being a victim, and it gives you a narrative to justify places you might be in life that aren't positive. Continuing on, it says, when you zoom out of your own entitled lens, you will see that not everything needs to be representative in order to be enjoyable. Of course, that's straight out of the Rolling Stone article, which I think is disgusting, but folks, you can go read it on your own. We're not barring you from doing so. We're not censoring it. It is behind a paywall, and our policy here on the channel is we don't show articles behind a paywall because we think that's unethical, even if the material itself is unethical in our view. But here's Alan Diaz's response, and this goes back to that aspirational aspect, Lauren, where you said these folks are trying to be aspirational. Maybe they believe they're aspirational, but they're not. Alan Diaz, again, podcaster, Ryan Johnson, you get it. My immediate visceral reaction to that quote is that it must be the word vomit of a brain-dead blank who didn't receive enough love growing up. I mean, you talk about vicious. Now attacking the parents of this individual. This is the dark timeline outcome of not hugging our children and reminding them that they have value. So, Alden Diaz, if you'd like to defend yourself and come on the channel, you're welcome to come on here. I don't know how that will go because you can't spew hatred and this kind of stuff on the channel. But, you're welcome to come on and defend this. We're not maligning you without recourse. Gentlemen, I'm really, number one, I think we're on the uphill now. I think that things are beginning to heal in other franchises, and I don't think Star Wars is far behind. I don't think they can continue the franchise. So they have two options. They can either quit making Star Wars, or they can begin doing what the fans want. And I think the best they could do was the Mandalorian movie. Now, I'm not suggesting that Star Wars is going to come back in the next 2, 3, 4 years. I think if it ever comes back, it'll be 7, 8, 9, 10 years under completely new leadership. And you'll have to retcon vast amounts of what Disney has done. That said, I think overall, when I look at Top Gun 3 being made, when I look at this new Ghostbusters film, again, ignoring Ghostbusters 2016, when I look at, Disney only having 3 movies that they can even release and backing up all their Marvel stuff, I get the feeling that we're actually beginning that pendulum shift. Guys, as we do that pendulum shift, do you think that folks like this that we've been showing and these articles out there that defend what Kathleen Kennedy have done, do you think that they'll be out in the cold wishing they had been more aspirational, more positive, or do you think this is just a modus operandi of darkness?
Well, we've seen this in the comics community. We've seen it in the gaming community. To me, this feels a lot like a locust cloud that moves from property to property. And so once the husk is hollowed out of Star Wars, my guess is that they'll just move on to whatever the next thing is, the next industry that they can infiltrate and use the same playbook.
Transient depravity.
Well, you got to attack the biggest, most popular franchises with your agenda. If you're trying to push an agenda, you need the biggest platform you can possibly find. And they've absolutely withered out the husk of Star Wars down to its bare bones. They've absolutely wrecked and destroyed the brand completely. So yeah, it's going to be time to move on. They've eaten everything they can eat. They've gotten what they can get out of this. So it's no longer the platform that it once was. We saw the numbers in viewership when it came to Ahsoka. It's dead. It's at the bottom of the ocean.
But is it redeemable? Is it redeemable, Derek?
It is redeemable, but it's going to require the type of storytelling that, frankly, I don't think exists right now on the Lucasfilm lot. I don't think anybody there has the ability to save Star Wars. They're going to continue to double and triple down on their own ideas. And what we need is a completely different filmmaker, somebody that has a fresher take, and can also go back to what George Lucas originally wanted to do. I feel like you got to get away from this era. This era is completely tainted. You know, they've done it with the Rey character. She's existing, and if you're not going to retcon the character, you're just going to have to go 200 years into the future. You're going to have to get completely away from this era, because this era is completely poisoned, and nobody
can't even release a movie. They can't even release a Rey movie.
I don't think they have any good ideas of what to do, and that's why they keep bumping things back. That's why the writer, what's his name, Stephen Knight, had a page full of notes, and now this guy's frustrated, like, I'm not dealing with this. You know, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Peaky Blinders, because that's something that, you know, I can do, and that makes sense to me. I don't think he can make sense out of what's going on right now with Star Wars. It's just chaos. It's absolute chaos going on over there at Lucasfilm. So the only thing that you can do, in my opinion, this is just my humble opinion, is to get away from this particular era, move forward 200 years, or at least a good amount of time where you can get away from some of these characters. Nobody's going to wonder, oh, is Rey going to pop up, or is Finn going to pop up, or whatever. You can get away from this era and, you know, get a guy that understands what George Lucas's original vision was all about. George Lucas was aspirational. Absolutely. He was about, hey, I'm telling a mythology, and it was a timeless classic tale. Star Wars is a timeless story. You can pop on Star Wars for any generation and it resonates. But when you throw on The Force Awakens, it's like, what is this? I don't understand this. You can't watch The Last Jedi and it doesn't resonate, because it's pandering to a specific era in time, and it's not timeless. George Lucas made a timeless mythology. And in order for the Star Wars to get back to that, they're going to have some sort of a visionary that understands this is what we need to do. We need to take this back to its original roots. You know, George Lucas has given us amazing characters, great storytelling, the hero's journey. You're going to have to go back to that in order to save Star Wars. If you don't, it's over. It's over. It's already proven that they can't figure this thing out. Kathleen doesn't know what she's doing. Charmin Obey-Chinoy. I mean, just think about the people that they're bringing into the franchise. How do you fix a franchise when you're bringing in a feminist activist to make your next big film? And, you know, now when the word got out about that and the entire internet blew a blood vessel, all right, now we got to go and switch it back and put Jon Favreau next. And it's just helter-skelter chaos. They have to get away. They have to really just let all of these people at Lucasfilm go. You have to get rid of everybody, start from scratch, and see if they can do something, you know, maybe in 10 years. But yeah, right now I have no confidence that Star Wars is going to redeem itself with the current slate and with the current people that are running it.
It's amazingly well said, and there's no guarantee that Star Wars can ever come back to be what it once was. But, you know, maybe in 15 years when everybody has left Lucasfilm and it's, you know, being run out of a small studio, who knows? Maybe somebody can write a book that's good and, you know, 50,000 people will read it. I don't know. Lauren, I guess I want to wind up here. Some of these people, and I don't know that there's money being passed around to write articles. I'm not alleging that in the least. But some of these folks seem to be attaching themselves to the Titanic, except it's already underwater. And I don't understand the joy in sitting on a throne or sycophanting for a throne that's on a pile of rubble. And that's what this seems to be. Kathleen Kennedy is over a franchise that is in critical decline. And, you know, why would you want to simp for that now? What is there driving these people?
Well, there's two great forces in life. There's creation and there's destruction. Destruction's easy. Creation is hard. But destruction can make you feel very powerful. And if you can blame that destruction on somebody else, so much the better. So not only do you get to feel virtuous about destroying something that you thought was in some way problematic, but you get to blame it on somebody else because supposedly the people that are trying to preserve what went before are somehow preventing your product from being successful. So I think it works from both sides.
I think that's the perfect place to end. I think there's a great life lesson to be learned there. Folks, there may be a PR campaign to save Kathleen Kennedy and to preserve her, her legacy. Ooh. But I don't think it's going to work. But now it's your turn. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. Like, share, subscribe. When you click it, you stick it to the algorithm. It's the notification bell. Lauren Connor can be found on That Part Place. He also has a YouTube channel that you should be watching. And Derek Anderson, I think, is one of the hottest up-and-comers on YouTube, period, flat out. If you're not yet subscribed, what are you doing? Seriously. Derek, how many subscribers you get now?
I'm closing in on 6,200. So hopefully, we get to that 6,500 mark real soon. But yeah, thanks for everybody that's showing up and helping out. Really, you do appreciate it. But it's been a wild ride, and I'm looking forward to it.
Folks, you want to be able to say one day you were in that first 10K. Get in there, get there now. All right, folks, that is a wrap for us. We hope we were as positive as we can be. We don't like some of these bits of commentary where people are being very, very cruel and unkind. We're not really sure what's going on with all of these articles suddenly popping up about Kathleen Kennedy out of the blue. Go check it out yourselves, folks. Let us know. Do you think that there's a PR campaign? Down in the comments below. We would love to hear that. And again, for Mr. Diaz, who was featured in this video heavily, open invite. Come on. But there's going to be some rules in terms of how we are allowed to communicate as far as not saying things that are incredibly inappropriate and unkind and all of that. So, civilized we shall be, and that includes yours truly. Folks, we hope you enjoyed the civilized video. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Hey everyone, I'm Wilton the Troll, and I got a really important PAF. I just feel it's important to take a moment to reflect on the current slate of Star Wars movie. I mean, we haven't had a woman take the lead on any Star Wars projects whatsoever in Star Wars yet. And that's partly because other women who are leading Star Wars, they don't want to let that happen, which totally isn't stereotypical of women. Am I right, ladies? But here we are, with director Charmin Abinadab Chinook or something. Anyway, she's a woman who's bringing a lot of weight to Star Wars because of her, pedigree. And yes, it's time for a woman to lead Star Wars. I mean, thing that has totally worked in every other sphere of life, especially politics. Come on, Hillary Clinton, you tell them that it's time for a woman to smash that patriarchy. Anyway, that's all I have to say, and I think it's important for you to know that. Thank you.